From the shore, it looks like any other lake. Calm water stretching to the horizon, pine forests, rocky beaches, the occasional lighthouse. But this is not an ordinary lake, and it does not behave like one. It is so vast that it makes its own weather, throws up waves the size of those on the open ocean, and can freeze the unlucky in minutes. Over the years, it has swallowed hundreds of ships and thousands of people. And here is the part that has haunted sailors for generations. It almost never gives them back. In most lakes, the drowned eventually rise to the surface. Here they vanish into the cold and the dark, and they simply stay there. This is Lake Superior, the largest freshwater lake on Earth and one of the deadliest bodies of water in North America. They say the lake never gives up its dead. And there is a chilling reason that is true. So where is this inland sea? Look at the border between the United States and Canada, at the top of the chain of 5 Great Lakes. The highest, coldest, and largest of them all is Lake Superior. It touches 3 American states, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and the Canadian province of Ontario. The Ojibwe people, who have lived along its shores for centuries, called it Gitche-Gumee, the Great Seawater. And sea is the right word. Superior is so large that you cannot see across it. Stand on its shore, and the far side simply drops below the curve of the earth, just like an ocean. Ships that sail it are not crossing a pond. They are crossing something closer to a cold, freshwater sea, one that has earned a fearsome reputation over the centuries. The numbers behind Lake Superior are hard to believe. By surface area, it is the largest freshwater lake in the world, big enough to hold all the water of the other 4 Great Lakes combined, with room to spare. It contains around 10% of all the fresh surface water on the entire planet. There is enough water here to flood both North and South America under about 30 centimeters. A lake this size does not act like a lake. It generates its own fog banks and storms, and the water is so deep and cold that it barely warms even at the height of summer. For the towns and ships around it, Superior is less a feature of the landscape and more a force of nature, with moods of its own and a long, dark history of turning deadly without much warning. To understand why it is so dangerous, you have to look beneath the surface. Lake Superior plunges to a maximum depth of around 406 meters, deep enough to swallow a building well over 100 stories tall. And it is brutally cold. Down in those depths, the temperature hovers near 4 degrees Celsius all year round, in winter and summer alike. Even near the surface, the water rarely climbs to anything you would call warm. Fall into Lake Superior, and the cold hits you almost at once. Hypothermia can take hold within minutes, long before any help could arrive. It is this combination, enormous depth, crushing cold, and sudden violent storms, that has made Superior a graveyard, and that same cold is the key to its strangest and grimmest secret. In a normal lake, a drowned body does not stay down for long. As it breaks down, bacteria produce gases that bloat the body and float it back to the surface where it can be found. Lake Superior breaks that rule. Its water is so cold that it dramatically slows and often stops the bacteria that cause a body to decay. Without that decay, there are no gases. Without the gases, the body never rises. It simply stays where it came to rest, far down in the dark and the cold, sometimes almost perfectly preserved. That is the literal truth behind the old sailor's saying, Superior never gives up its dead. The people lost to this lake are, in many cases, still down there, not as a legend, but as a cold, quiet fact of the deep. And there are a great many of them. Over the centuries, Lake Superior and the waters around it have claimed an estimated 350 shipwrecks, and with them, thousands of lives. Sailors gave one stretch near Whitefish Point a grim nickname, the Graveyard of the Great Lakes. The wrecks litter the bottom, schooners, steamers, and giant iron ore freighters scattered across the cold floor of the lake. But here the cold turns from killer to keeper. The same frigid, fresh water that takes lives also preserves what it takes. Many of these wrecks sit almost intact, their wood unrotted and their iron barely rusted, frozen in time a century or more after they went down. The lakebed is, in effect, an enormous underwater museum of disaster, one that almost no one will ever see. So what sends so many ships to the bottom? The answer has a name that sailors still say with respect: the Witch of November. As autumn ends, Ferocious storms sweep across the Great Lakes, and Superior, the largest and most exposed, takes the worst of them. Winds can reach hurricane force. Waves can rise higher than a 3-story building, marching across open water with nowhere for a ship to hide. In November of 1913, one such storm, later called the White Hurricane, battered the lakes for days, sank more than a dozen ships, and killed over 250 people. There are no islands to shelter behind out in the middle of Superior. When the Witch of November comes calling, a ship and its crew are utterly alone with the lake. No story captures that better than the Edmund Fitzgerald. In its day, it was one of the largest freighters on the Great Lakes, a giant of iron over 200 meters long. On the 10th of November, 1975, it was crossing Superior loaded with ore when it sailed straight into one of those murderous November storms. Battered by towering waves, the ship sent a few calm radio messages, the last saying simply that they were holding their own. And then it was gone. The Edmund Fitzgerald sank so suddenly that no distress call ever came, and not one of its 29 crew was ever found. The lake took the entire ship and every man aboard in minutes and kept them. To this day, the wreck lies broken on the bottom, and the Fitzgerald remains the most haunting name on the lake. For those who go looking, the deep of Lake Superior is an eerie place. In the cold and the dark, wrecks appear out of the gloom looking almost ready to sail again. Railings intact, cargo still in the hold, names still readable on the hull. But reaching them is another matter. Many lie hundreds of feet down, in water so cold and dark that diving to them is dangerous, and for the deepest, nearly impossible. Out of respect, some of the wrecks where crews died are treated as graves and left undisturbed. So the lake keeps its dead and its ships together, sealed beneath the surface, preserved but out of reach. It is a place that gives up its secrets slowly, if at all, and only to those willing to descend into the cold that killed everyone who came before. From a quiet beach on a summer evening, none of this seems possible. The water laps gently on the rocks, the light turns golden, and Lake Superior looks like one of the most peaceful places on Earth. But that calm is a kind of mask. Beneath it lies a cold, deep, and merciless world that has taken thousands of lives and given almost none of them back. Superior is not cruel. It is simply vast and cold and indifferent, a freshwater sea that does exactly what its nature dictates and keeps whatever falls into it. The people of its shores have learned to love it and fear it in the same breath because they know the truth in the old saying. Lake Superior is beautiful beyond words, and it never ever gives up its dead.